People deluded. I'm back again. I'm here with a special guest, Tom from the Gooner Talk TV. How you doing, man? I know we've tried to get this done for a while, and we're finally here now. How you doing, man?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. As we were just talking about off air, suffering through the international break, but we're nearly there now. We're nearly there.
Can't complain. I know you kind of touched up on it, but what have you been up to in the international break? How have you been keeping sane?
Yeah, writing, a lot of writing, researching kind of transfer stuff, not producing content on it, but researching it ready to go. And a lot of people have kind of been throwing names my way and trying to find out about different players, but mainly watching a lot of kind of the under-21s as well, rather than the actual kind of internationals. So yeah, that's the main thing.
Oh man, I've been watching England's under-21s. We're playing today. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know how you're able to watch that. I've been losing my mind watching that football. I thought how you can be worse than Southgate, I don't know, but we've managed it. Let me get into it in terms of Arsenal. Obviously, we've had a break because obviously we haven't spoken on this channel before, off on air at all. Where are you at as an Arsenal fan this season? Where do you find yourself now? What sort of headspace are you in? Where's your feelings, man? Shoot them all at me.
I obviously I'm very much in the court of kind of supporting what we've got right now.
What do you mean by that?
It's a hard thing to kind of put together because you want to come across in a certain way in which that there's always kind of such a split in the Arsenal fan base. It seems we've had it from the Arsene Wenger era, went into the Unai Emery, and now it's in the Arteta era. And I don't really like the idea of there being a split or being kind of like labelled as either Arteta in or Arteta out. And this
Thank you.
It just really pisses me off. Because
no, bro, you're taking it all you're saying it all for me. I'm happy. Just please keep going, because when I say it, I sound like a broken record.
I just want to see like a kind of a brought together fan base about kind of a cause. And when I see like supporters throwing out like just get him out, move on, and stuff like this, and in my head I'm going, mate, it's just been like we've had one summer window under this guy. But we need to kind of, I know, and I have empathy for the fact that our fans have had to be patient for a really, really long time. But the context of the club and where we're at and the ownership that we've got as well, like it's to be competing with the Chelsea's, the City.
Wishing on a star, man.
Exactly. It's not realistic. However, what I would say is that are we better than where we are right now? Yeah, the answer is yes. We should be doing better than where we are. But I feel like I feel like we're a bit of a coiled spring in a way that we're just kind of like building up that pressure, and then next season or the season after that. And I know, but just by saying the season after that, people will kind of drop their heads a bit. But I just feel like it has the potential, this squad, under this coach, and where we might go with our recruitment in the summer, to really kind of explode next season or beyond. And this season's not even over yet. Like, imagine if the idea of Arsenal winning the Europa League and getting into the Champions League next season.
Don't do it, man. Don't do it to me, man. I don't want to dream, man. I don't want to dream.
I can't help it because I'm an optimist, bro. I just want to get there and we'll see. I'm always best case scenario, thinking about where we could be. And the thing is that I want to see Arsenal obviously in the Champions League, and that's possible this season. And with kind of the reform of the Champions League in a few years' time that seems to be becoming ratified soon, I want Arsenal to be involved in that as soon as possible. And I know that there's the historical merit, whether or not Arsenal would ever be included in that because of the amount of time we've been in it, but of course we've not won it.
Yeah,
but I want to make sure that we build up to the point where we can be a consistent competitor in the sense that we're going for that top. I don't think that to be a club like Arsenal in the bracket of clubs that we are, it's not realistic to be a shoo-in and expected to be a Champions League qualifier every season, because there's too many clubs now in the Premier League with the money and the capacity to be in that top four. It's not realistic. Haven't got the capacity of like City and Chelsea and United. We just can't spend like them. So we need to spend smartly, and that's what we haven't done over the last half decade to a decade. We've not spent well, and now we're suffering. And that's why Arteta, I think, has struggled a lot with the squad he's been given.
Facts, man. You said everything. You said a lot of key things. Like for me, I don't really like the devices in fan bases. You either rate a player, you don't. There's no middle ground in that. If somebody said something like, I don't believe in Arteta, but I'm open to be proven wrong, or I love Arteta, but he may in future not be the guy, that's fine. So I think that was a great point. You made a great point for me, and this is why I wanted you on there, because it's what I say as well, in that I personally, I don't believe in many of those players, but I do believe in Arteta. Now, if we get across into a time where he shows me he's not the guy, then we'll obviously do another video. But
yeah,
I don't know. I find myself dreaming that this one coach can turn us around, and we all know that's not realistic. We need Edu to obviously do his job. We need leadership from those above. Are you confident for the summer window? I know you can't predict the future, of course, but you look at it, we've got to decide what we're doing with a lot of those midfielders. We've got to make decisions, even if those decisions in the future might be wrong. It just feels like we're half and half with a lot of players and what we're trying to do as a club.
Yeah, I am, because I think I look at what we've seen over the last 2 windows in January and the summer of 2020, and that fills me with positivity. Were they perfect? No. I mean, Willian came in, but even the Willian thing's really weird because I don't think anyone expected him to be as poor as he was. And when we brought him in as like a free deal, it wasn't like it. I didn't get kind of the David Luiz or Czech vibes from that deal. I thought this was a guy that was experienced, that won the title at Chelsea, that was playing regularly for them, was in the top 10 chance creators in the Premier League last season. I was like, right, okay, on a free deal to give Pepe that competition, it makes sense. But I think that I didn't expect him to play as much as he has, and I didn't expect him to kind of be as poor as he has. But that was kind of the only really bad mark on what I thought was a real good window, where you bring in the 2 key positions that we've been crying out for 10 years. You buy a top-class centre-back in Gabriel, and you buy a world-class centre midfielder in Thomas Partey. And then you move to January, and we've got a situation where we move out so much deadwood. We get all these wages off the books. No one expected Mesut Ozil to be gone. I think everyone expected to kind of run down that deal. We pay him off.
He F-stops when he wants to, sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so we managed to do that. And not only that, is we got a potentially world-class player in on loan for 6 months that's doing exceptionally well, with the view that whilst there's no official option, that he seems happy. He's seeing all the right things are being said by Odegaard right now, that we could get this deal done in the summer. And if we do get that deal done, I think you've got a potentially world-class talent there that's been proving himself over the last couple of seasons and beyond with the loans in Holland as well, that we've got a real good kind of connection between Edu and Arteta, knowing what we need to do, and actually going out and doing it. It's just whether they get the financial backing and the sales that need to be made so that we can really kind of go full throttle in the summer.
And that's kind of what I meant by we need to be proactive. We need to make decisions. You know, I could sit here and talk about all the young players that are on loan and could become amazing in the future. I personally feel we've got to just make decisions and be really proactive, because I agree with you in some parts about last summer, but I did see reactive. You know, you dragged out Partey. Obviously, transfers are notoriously hard to do, but I just saw that as dragging out Partey. The quicker you got that in, the quicker he could have, got used to things with Arteta. You did not bring in that creative man. Now, some clubs would say an 8 as well as a 6 in Partey were vital. I don't think that was done, and I think the fact that it was done on the end of the window with that release clause, it kind of clouded that fact. In the January window, I have full admiration for what they did. Some people, again, would say that was reactive. With the Odegaard thing, I'm happy. I'm happy with what he's saying. I'm happy. You know, let's not get it twisted. It is a relationship of convenience. We needed creativity. We got rid of Ozil. We weren't using Ozil at that period, and people were talking about that. We need to get one in. We needed someone to play. He needed a platform. So we've married the two together. Obviously, we probably wasn't going to get a permanent sort of offer at the time, where I think we've shot ourselves in the foot. Do you think we could get Odegaard? I think we can get him on. I definitely think we can get him on loan again for a full year, if that is the case. Do you think we could get a permanent one done this window in the summer, assuming we don't know where we are in Europe?
I think that it will depend a lot on where we do end up being in Europe in terms of if we qualify at all, because that will have a big impact on kind of our finances and where we sit with that and how many players are sold. But yeah, there's all the potential in the world that we can get this done. That we could get it on either on a loan with an obligation or purchase option, which I think is the best kind of ideal for us.
Yeah, IOUs.
Yeah, 100%. Because then if like we've had what, even 3 months of Odegaard so far, and he's been great, and we've loved what he's given us so far. But it could be between now and the end of the season he doesn't do so well, or he does really well before the end of the season, and then next season when he has a full season at Arsenal, then it dips, and you've already committed say 40 to 50 million quid on this guy, and you're thinking, oh crap, I shouldn't have really done that. But if you can get a loan deal done with an option on it, then I think that protects us. I always find it a bit weird when selling clubs do the loan with an option, because I think it takes away all the power from them. It's a bit of a strange one to kind of agree to, but enough clubs around the world do it that it's pretty commonplace now. So yeah, I think we can do it, and I think that it would be, if we can't, there are still plenty of other options out there.
Sorry to cut you off. But that's something as well. You know, it does seem like as Arsenal, and I said this to the viewers yesterday, it does feel like when it becomes Arsenal and we're linked with players, obviously we do, but it doesn't come across like we have necessarily plan B options. It's like it becomes all Aouar, it becomes all Partey. It's now become all Odegaard. Now, us being Arsenal, like you said, we're not Chelsea, we're not City, we haven't got those purchases. Are you confident that if Odegaard doesn't come, then there's a backup option there? I know we've got Smith Rowe, and I know a lot of people said don't even sign Odegaard because of Smith Rowe. But as a man that understands football, it's a squad game, you know, injuries, loss of form, different sort of tactical stuff. You need many creative men in your side. Do you have faith in a plan B would be sought if this Odegaard thing didn't happen? Because for me, I hear all the language he's saying, but again, he's not my friend. I don't know what he thinks. He could always be thinking it's Real Madrid, like these great games. I'm going back to Madrid. I hope they watch the game, sort of thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't even blame him for that either. Like,
neither would I.
The potential to go back to Real Madrid for a guy that's not an Arsenal fan. I think a lot of people kind of misjudge Arsenal players and think they're fans at times, and it's not the case. But in regards to kind of the backup, Charles Watts tweeted out the other day saying that Arsenal are looking at Nabil Fekir as a possible kind of alternative. He's very different to Odegaard, though. He's much more direct. Yeah, well, he's to me. Odegaard's like your classic kind of style number 10 that could play in a 7 position, but you've also got Fekir, who's kind of a second striker. He's a bit of a 10-9 hybrid.
Yeah, and even now he's been playing deeper for Betis. I like him.
Yeah, because that role's had to change because of how Betis have changed their style. But he liked to be kind of behind Lacazette at Lyon, like really playing off the shoulder of him and combining with him, doing really well. And then when Lacazette left, he kind of actually became more of a number 9 in a sense that he took more of the responsibility. But that's reverted Betis. But he's much more direct. You look at the amount of dribbles that he makes in comparison to Odegaard. I think it's more than 3 times per match, the amount of dribbles that he's making in a game compared to the Norwegian. So he's much more direct than he is. But people also linked us to like Paulo Dybala, who we could be
dream chasing. I would love it, but...
He is kind of in the same bracket of Fekir, much more direct, goal-driven rather than creative.
10.5, a 9.5, neither quite.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not sure if I actually prefer kind of the Fekir Dybala style or the Odegaard. I think like the Odegaard style, the creator actually suits what Arteta's trying to do more than maybe a direct number 10.5. It's a really tricky one to think about what. I mean, I saw a video you put out the other day. Do you think that Arteta's style is being legitimized now? Can you identify what his style really is at this point?
If I'm completely honest with you, I say no, because again, you look at that squad, there's so much question marks. And when I look at a lot of what he's done over his season and a half here, I don't know if he believes in players or he believes in them because he has to use them. You know, like I look at Xhaka. If in the summer he might bin Xhaka and say, do you know what, I want another midfielder. The way he's used Mustafi previously, the way he actually used Guendouzi before he obviously couldn't buck up his ideas. I'm not sure. What I will say, I think Arteta has kind of done some soul searching. I've seen him stop trying to do 30 crosses. He's kind of gone back to basics. He's kind of just playing players in their right role. So I won't go as far as to say I see what he wants to do, but I can see him trying to play forward-thinking football. I can see the inverted fullbacks. I can see the movements. I can see it almost indirectly looks like a 4-4-2 when Odegaard goes up there. Playing out from the back, again, I don't think he's got his players, because I know mistakes will happen with playing out from the back, but again, they should be minimum. When you've got players throughout that whole squad that are good for at least 5, 6, 7 mistakes, and you add that all together, is a bit long. So I'd say, you know, he's made us a bit more solid. We play a bit of attacking football in patches. Over the whole 90, I'm not convinced, but I would say a lot of the things what I'm looking at now, I'm more looking at Arteta, the players, because I feel sorry for him. As much as I can criticize Arteta, as you've seen, there's been several times the way the man has spoke before the games, the way he has spoke all week. We've gone into games and just done stupidness. He's clearly not told them to do that on the weekend. So I don't want to keep saying next season, but I do genuinely feel next season is where I'm going to see everything. Next season is where I feel the club is probably going to judge him. Like if we're still here a year from now, might get the boot, because you've still got the luxuries of the COVID, of the mass turnarounds of our squad, of the shambles. He's just had to just get on with it. He's not, the environment hasn't been good. And that's the thing for me. If we want Arteta, an inexperienced manager, to thrive, you've got to surround him with experience, with things he doesn't know, especially if, for instance, you're putting him in charge of it. Well, not in charge, but he's involved in transfers now. Again, who is around him? Again, he can't do everything. If he has to leave that training ground to deal with transfers, what coaching staff is able to make sure that session doesn't drop off in quality, and vice versa? I think the collaboration sort of thing, I'm really scrutinizing Arsenal structure. and how much of it will change, I'm not sure. What's your thoughts on Arteta and his tactical breakdowns and what you've seen from him, anyways?
I think I've started to see more of it. Especially with the arrival of Odegaard and the emergence of Smith Rowe. I think those two coming into the team have really kind of emphasised what we're looking at on the pitch as creation. I think that Arteta wants to play a style that creates a hell of a lot of chances per match, utilise kind of the wide areas. Because at the start of the season, he didn't have that number 10. So a lot of our attacks went down the flanks so that we were crossing all of the time.
Left-hand centric.
Now you've got these 10s, you've got guys that can cut the ball back to these on the edge of the box, play the incisive passes between the defensive lines and create those clear-cut chances for our strikers. The issue is, in the second half of this season, is we're not taking the chances we're making. You look at the Burnley.
Take it away. Trust me.
Yeah, you look at the Burnley game, the chances that Pepe had, the chances that Laka had, the chance that Odegaard had himself. Like we really could have been putting away those chances, and that against Olympiacos at home when we lost 1-0, we missed a ton of chances in that. People talk about us playing really bad in that game because of the scoreline, and we weren't great, but we created a lot of really clear-cut opportunities. Pepe could have squared it for Aubameyang in the first half. Aubameyang had a one-on-one in the second half. He put wide. Odegaard had a chance that came off the back of one of our own players and went over.
Smith Rowe or someone?
I think it was, yeah.
Or did
we
Pepe
created plenty of chances in that match to win it, but because we lost, it obviously came off as a really, really poor result, even though we still went through. This is what I'm saying about Arsenal as a coiled spring. We're creating these clear-cut chances. We're just not taking them. And when it finally clicks, and when we get that extra player or that extra bit of solidity at the back so we're not conceding these silly goals and the mistakes go, we're going to start taking these chances. We're going to start keeping more clean sheets, even more than we have done already. And it really could push us up. And that's why I get so frustrated that people just write, now I'm done with this. I don't want to chuck it away. Because I can't get my head around why.
Especially when they can't rationalize why they're saying that. For me, you're entitled to say that if you want, as long as you can provide something. You said a great point there, and it kind of gets me thinking, because I agree wholeheartedly what you said. But also the flip side, I feel when I'm focusing on fine margins, if Aubameyang scored, if Leno saved this, if done that, I just feel that tells me that over 90 minutes, we're not doing enough. Now, I feel a bit of that is obviously with the manager. The majority is with the players. Like, the only criticism I really give of Arteta, I can see how he sets up a plan. He can prepare for a team. If it's a boxing match, he can study an opponent, how they like to jab, all that sort of stuff, and get into it. My problem has been at times, and in recent, he's done well. When you've gone into that boxing match and they've, they might be left-handed, but they've punched you with their right hand. I don't think there's been a plan to kind of counter-react with that. And I think that's kind of highlighted when I've seen experienced managers, like even in the first leg of the Europa League against Olympiacos. I'm sure that the Olympiacos gaffer in the second half, he went to a free at the back. We had no answers for it. And that's kind of what I mean by, until we get some more intelligent players, I can criticize Arteta, but I can't see much changing. A lot of these players have been under several managers here now, and it's still been the same old, same old.
I mean, you look at like Thomas Tuchel at Chelsea, and people have used that as kind of a bit of an example. Go, look, you can see what happens there if you change your manager really quickly.
And all the other dynamics are not being spoken of.
Oh, I know, exactly. Oh. You've got a guy that Frank Lampard, 200 million's worth of talent that was brought in the summer, and he didn't utilise it. He didn't use them properly, and he couldn't get the best from those players. Thomas Tuchel's come in, who is, yes, a more experienced coach, but Frank Lampard and that kind of the output of what he was getting from his side was so minimal in comparison to what Tuchel's got from the current side. But the level of those players and the squad in general is so much far and away higher than what Arteta's got available to him at Arsenal that it's not like if Thomas Tuchel came into Arsenal that you'd see that same kind of explosion, because the capacity and the potential of that squad is just so different in comparison to Chelsea.
How many of the Chelsea players get into top clubs? How many of these Arsenal players get into top clubs?
Exactly. And that's the thing, is that when you look at Arsenal's side and you go through man to man, are we gradually improving the amount of those players that do? Yes, I would say that Gabriel and Partey, who we signed in the summer, are top 6 signings. They're players that do get into other teams in the league. But prior to that, when we were signing the likes of Socrates and Xhaka and Mustafi and all of these guys, like, they're, for me, and I think Xhaka is one of the most misunderstood players in the team still.
And that's a problem of that's another problem we could speak about. Signing players who might be able to play passes, but you don't actually know what they are and how they're going to affect Arsenal in a positive way beyond the obvious.
Yeah, I just want to see Arsenal continue what they've done so far under Arteta and Edu in terms of the market, of just signing these players that improve what we got, that get into other top 6 sides, because that's the only way that we progress. We're not going to be progressing if we bring in. That's why it's really frustrating when you see us linked to some players and people just turn their noses at them. I remember when we were linked to like Johnny Evans for like 10 million quid. And Johnny Evans has been one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League at Leicester.
West Brom days, isn't it? When Wenger wanted to get rid of Mustafi. I'm not gonna lie, I was looking at Wenger like I want some of that weed that you're smoking, but yeah, I see it then. I see what he was trying to do.
Yeah, I think that we just need to sometimes swallow our pride a little bit and think, actually, let's have a look let's take a step back, look at the context of the situation. We haven't signed any Premier League talent of really kind of good quality for a long, long time. We've signed cast-offs and surplus players at other clubs that they don't need. And if you're going to sign surplus players of your rivals, that's not going to get you any closer to them. Exactly. So start signing the better players in the Premier League, and that's going to push you up.
That's why it's all about scouting for me. Like, obviously, the club is scouting. Clearly, it's not of when Arsene Wenger came to England, where we have France in our hands. But that's why scouting is it for me. Because if Real Madrid turn around and say, do you know what, Arsenal, F off, you're not getting Odegaard. I want you to be able to go for a household name in that role. But there could be someone in the second division in France, in Spain, wherever in this world. And that's something I've had a problem with, because that's what we used to do before. Even when we was more so going back to the Emirates era, when we used to get mocked for top four. How crap were we realistically? And how many times our players are getting bought by Barcelona and all of these things? You know, I would love Barcelona with their decision making to buy some of our players, but even they're not that stupid. There's a question here, and I could answer it as well, but I'd like to hear a different perspective, because in fact, for me, when it comes to somebody looks at Leicester, it's a bit like what we're seeing with Everton. It's a bit like what I want to see at Arsenal, in that I see direction. You've got a manager, you've backed him, you've clearly assembled a decent squad, and you've got resale value with what they've got. That's why Leicester are in that position. But when you look at what Esses said, he said, look at Leicester, their funds are limited, but the people behind their usage of funds are great. Whereas Arsenal, what would you say to that? Because I wholeheartedly agree.
The only thing I disagree with it is the point about saying their funds are limited, because their funds aren't, because they've sold exceptionally well. You look at how much they've got for the likes of Kante, for Mahrez, for Harry Maguire.
Forget all of that. Yeah, you just said it. Harry Maguire is enough to be praised for.
Ben Chilwell as well. Like, they got 50 million for him. Like, when they sell really well. And then when they buy really well.
Fofana, Telemans, Soyuncu, these men are being sold for big bucks.
Soyuncu comes in and basically plays as good, if not better, than what Harry Maguire was at Leicester. You bring in Ndidi, who's been probably not as good as Kante is, because Kante's a world-class player. He's a top player, Ndidi, and he's really kind of covered that role. Tielemans has come in and been really good in the midfield. And then in the forward line, they've brought in Iheanacho, and that, through Brendan Rodgers' coaching, has actually got the best from him more recently. But Jamie Vardy was still there, and they've still got other players. They bring in some guys that don't necessarily work, like you look at Musa.
Under's nobody's not really done much on his little loan. I don't know if it's a loan,
but he set up a goal against us. That was enough.
Yeah, I mean, you're good for that against Arsenal. Come on, man. You might not get an assist for 24 games and against us.
But that was a loan at the end of the day. That was a loan with an option to buy, so they don't have to take that up. So that was a good bit of business as well, to see if they would actually add anything to them. But their midfield's really solid, their creation solid, and they're bringing obviously James Maddison from Norwich, another player that came in from within England, and looking at that market as well. I wish Arsenal would go out and look maybe to the Championship sometimes. That's why I was kind of really on the Emi Buendia train, because I think that he would actually really add some creativity to Arsenal. And if we don't get Odegaard, I'm really up for saying bring Buendia in. I know he plays a little bit skewed out to the right, but he's got in my view, he's got all of the characteristics
to move inside and do that. The good and intelligent players can do that. And you're kind of touching on the point of what I mean about the collaboration thing. The manager can be as good as he wants. Clearly at Leicester, Rodgers might be suggesting Fofana and all of these players, but I'm pretty doubtful as to if he is suggesting all of them. It's a bit like with Everton, Carlo said, I want X, Y, and Z. You heard him the other day say Decore wasn't on my list. The club wanted him, and you can see how he's used. That's the sort of collaborative effort I want to see at Arsenal. It's like what you said. I actually don't have a problem with using agents. I don't want to get into bed with agents, but I don't have a problem having good relations with them.
It's a necessary evil.
Yeah, like the problem is, if you ain't got the money or you're not trying to get their top players, then you're going to get their bottom of the barrel sort of scraps people that are on the lookout. And that's my problem with Arsenal, is that even Odegaard, he had one foot out the door. He wasn't playing. He wanted to get on loan. I'm not criticizing that at all, but it's just like you never get the vibe we truly want a player. And also for me, in the last few years, I never get the vibe that a player fits into our system, whatever that is. It's just a good player, whether that's an outstanding year in Pepe's example, whether that's, half the time they want to sell a player. I don't really see what we're trying to do. And that's my pet peeve. And I can't see us advancing until we get that under lock and key, until we see, like you said, it's easier said than done, but the Moores or the Martinellis, and I know Guendouzi didn't work out, but these sort of things.
Yeah, no, you're right. And you need to be looking at kind of once you add the extra quality, and we talk about players that are going to be the top 6 sides and competing with those teams, but you need to think about the alternative to that. You need to think about adding quality that's at a lower level at the same time. You look at Chelsea, while they added 200 million's worth of players, they brought in Malang Star, for instance, on a free. That's a young kid that's going to develop and do well.
As well.
Exactly. Another one we were linked to. So it's the balance that you need to find. And I think the next season we're quite lucky in the fact that we got Saliba and Mavropanos coming back. I only see one of them staying. I think one of them will either go permanently or on a loan again. But
which one is it for you? Because I think
it has to be Saliba. Like, we have to keep Saliba, in my opinion.
Sorry, I meant Mavropanos.
Sorry. I think Saliba's the one that we've invested £27 million in this guy. If you look to sell Saliba now, are you going to get 27 million from him? You might be lucky to get that for him. But Mavropanos, you spent barely anything on this young kid. He's gone to Stuttgart. He's done really well. They want to take him back for another year on loan.
That's always mentioning it. Yep.
Exactly. So if we can get a good fee for him, or even like a loan with an option or whatever, or a loan with an obligation, I'm fine with that, because you've got Saliba coming back. You've given a new contract to Holding. Profit. Chambers has been good since he's come back into the team as well, and he's versatile to play right back or centre back. So we've got cover there. At left centre back, I think we're sorted as well with Marie and Gabriel. They're two really good.
Would you sign a centre half? Because for me, I probably would. You know, I like Luiz. If Luiz is to stay, for me, it's an extremely marginalised role for me, because we need to learn our mistake with Koscielny and over relying on him and build for the future. I like Marie, but the only criticism I can say of him, as much as I'm full of admiration, it's really a small sample size I have to choose from, and he has had injury concerns. Gabriel is still inexperienced. We all forget about it because, you know, Saliba and whatnot, but he's still inexperienced. I think we need what I describe as a sort of bridge centre half. If you can get a 25-year-old, 27 plus, someone that, you know, they don't have to be the best in the world. They're just competent and consistent. They can
Marie on the right, basically.
Yeah. And I don't know why we won't. I don't think we're going to do 2 left-sided centre halves together, but I think we need that, because I want to see Gabriel and Saliba. But as you know, Tom, yourself, there'll be games you will see how old both of them are.
Yeah. Exactly. And experience is key. And I think that's why David Luiz has carried himself so well in the second half of this season, is because his experience has really put him through that. And he's kind of fit into what we've wanted to do in the second half of the season. His distribution has definitely helped us. But in terms of whether I'd sign like a right-sided centre-back, I would if we got the capacity to do it. But I think in terms of my priorities of the signings of the summer,
Midfield,
it's probably fourth, fifth on my list of positions, maybe even 6th, because I think you're looking at Thomas Partey's partner as kind of a marquee area of the team, the attacking midfielder, Odegaard or someone else, a backup left back, a backup goalkeeper, and maybe even a right back, depending on that. And then striker comes into it.
Backup goalie. Let me stop you there. You're not happy with Matt Ryan? You're not feeling that on a permanent if it could be done?
Well, we've still got to sign him. That's the thing.
Yeah.
He's still there, yeah. So, but I think he did really well against Villa, even though we lost that game. I didn't necessarily blame him for the goal that we conceded at all. And he was solid. So it's a competent player. It's someone who actually is a fan of the club as well. So you've got that attachment as well. And that's good character to have in the dressing room. Someone who gets the club, likes the club, wants to be there. I think that's important. And sometimes maybe the personal side of it, why you'd sign a player, goes out the window in favour of looking at stats and their output, etc. Character is important. I think that Ryan's a good character to have in the dressing room. So yeah, maybe I would go for it. And I think, I don't know if he has one more year left on his deal or if he actually goes on a free, but whatever, it'll be a cheap deal to get
months. But yeah, I would like that to be done, because for me, Matt Ryan, again, if you could scout someone better, I'm all for improvements. But Matt Ryan, like you said, you know, we're not nervous when he is called upon, like we saw with Runnison, who was apparently going to be third choice. You know, I'm not one to really care about you loving the club and being a fan, but like you said, it is nice that, you know, you're going to behave a certain sort of way. You're going to be a decent role model for young players. We know you're going to be decent. I'm all for that. I agree with you with the striker thing, and I want to press you on that, because I think I've been saying it on my channel. I think if Arteta could, he goes for a striker. I think he likes Aubameyang and what he can bring you in terms of the goals. He clearly has admiration for Lacazette and some concerns. Eddie forced his way once upon a time. Martinelli spoken about as being a striker. Without speaking about Martinelli, because again, the sample size is kind of small. I don't think he's fully convinced over all of them. So where are you at with the strikers? Where are you at with Lacazette as a new deal? Where are you at with Aubameyang's form? Where are you at with Eddie?
The thing about the Lacazette deal is, I think, and you said maybe not to touch on Martinelli too much, but I think the Lacazette contract kind of actually impacts Martinelli a lot. Because if you give Lacazette a contract, I think that's pretty much saying to Martinelli that there is scope for you to maybe be the striker in the future. We're giving this guy that's turning 30 years old in May a new deal for maybe 1 or 2 years so that you've got that time to develop into a central striker. If you don't give a kind of a deal to Lacazette and you sell Lacazette and bring in the bridge style player you were talking about earlier in that position, a 24, 25, 26-year-old striker, that pretty much scuppers Martinelli's real kind of long-term chances of being a central striker for me. I think there's capacity for him to maybe rotate in, but then I think that if you sign that kind of Aouar or I want is it? Yeah, I genuinely do, because I think
they can both coexist. One can I think I'm a bit weird like this. I think they can both coexist. I think it's literally a fighting thing. I'm one of them guys. Like I always think of the bigger picture in that it's a 38 game period. You know, one can be used ahead of the other, and I think we need someone like that, man. I think we need someone who can play with their back to goal. I'm not you, but I'm very wary of people with Martinelli because you ain't really seen him play 10 games. For me, he's Alexis Sanchez in that role. But what happens when people say, oh, he can't play with his back to goal or this, that, and the other, and we're going to need to relieve the pressure on him. So I agree with what you're saying. Where are you at with, would you give Lacazette a new deal?
It's a really tough one.
Bearing in mind what happened already with another striker in a new deal, some might say.
And that's the thing, is I think if you give Lacazette a new deal, it's a case of, I think you give him a 1-year extension and that's the max. Like I'm not going out and giving him a 2-year extension, 3-year extension or massively increased wages. If it's to protect his value, if so we can sell him on in another summer to get that money in for him maybe next season when he'd be turning 31, and you can still get a decent sized fee for a 31-year-old striker that's of Lacazette style, that doesn't rely on pace, that's more about back to goal and using the player against him and then finishing chances. So I think that's still worth it. So maybe a 1-year extension minimum, but if you do give him the extension, then Arsenal are basically saying that no, we're not going for a striker in this summer, and I want to see all of those funds redirected to an attacking midfielder and to a centre midfielder and maybe in the right back area and left back and goalkeeper. So it's a tough one. I think the contract situation with Lacazette is entirely dependent on where we're prioritising our other areas for signings in the summer.
You said it perfectly. It's all depending on what we're trying to do, you know, because there is a couple of what I would call things that could be addressed, like on, you know, immediately centre mid, arguably in defence, left back, right back. These are all immediate areas. Like you said, on the backdrop of that, you've got a couple of other contracts you've got for me up front, and you've got a couple of other roles. So I'm keen to see. I agree with you. If they don't give him a new deal, if they do, it screams short-term thinking, because you'd have Willian, Aubameyang, and him, potentially David Luiz. I'm not criticizing them, because I think these players, if they can help us for the present, then they set up the Martinellis and the Sakas and all of these guys for the future. If we get Europa League and Champions League in the next 2 years, then, you know, we could have a better playing squad. But it all depends. If you was Lacazette, would you sign a 1-year deal though? This is the thing. This is what I had to ask, because it's like we speak a lot from a fan's point of view. Because I wouldn't, because for me, it's not. There's no security there. Like we have to think about the finances. So what? You know what? I say that. Arguably in today's day and age, free transfers are all the rage now. So I personally wouldn't. But where do you stand with it?
I think he might, because I think he enjoys where he is. I think there's that connection, and it's very easy to say, oh, his best mates in Aubameyang's at the club, but it genuinely does have a bit of a bearing. A 1-year extension, if it was a slight increase on wages, he might. But then, so I think it comes down to like the interest in him as well. Like if Atletico Madrid or Roma are still interested in him, would say they go to his agent and say, look, we want to bring him in on a 3-year deal, I think he'd be mad to turn that down. So. But if there's barely any interest and Arsenal say, look, we'll give you a 1-year extension, I think that, it makes sense for him to sign that deal. But it'll all come down to who else wants him, if anyone else genuinely does. Obviously,
everybody's a genius in hindsight, in hindsight, and tries to apply foresight. Everyone was begging Aubameyang to sign that deal. Now everybody was saying, I was saying to sell him. Yeah. Where you at with Aubameyang's form? Do you think it's because of the man you are? I'm pretty sure I can answer this, but do you think he's just taking his feet off the gas because he signed a new deal?
I just think he's had a bad season. That's all I think he's had. I think people read a lot into things. When you talked about benefit of hindsight, I think that I was very much championing the idea that we have to sign him to a new deal, because I just don't see Arsenal going out and signing anyone else to replace those goals. And the thing is, with the benefit of hindsight, now I look back and go, well, maybe it wasn't the best idea, because you were giving him a contract for the things that he's done, not necessarily a contract for the things that you can give us between the ages of 31 to 33.
Or how you're going to use him,
Yeah. But I just don't see how Arsenal replaced those goals in that summer with the money that was available in a pandemic hit summer.
And the other dynamics.
Exactly. I don't see how that would have happened. I think he's had an off season, but I think about how we're changing. I also think that the lack of chance creation in the first half of the season was hugely impactful on how his output was. But the second half, we're starting to create chances. He really frustrated me against West Ham. I thought he should have come off much, much sooner. It wasn't his game. I don't like him on the left. I don't like him playing with Lacazette. For me, it's a case of one or the other. I want to see Emile Smith or an Odegaard playing together as much as possible, because I think that's the greatest bit of creativity that we've got when those two play. It means you have to bench.
Closest we get to Arsene Wenger's side, I feel you.
And to be fair, we played some decent stuff when Ramsey played on the right-hand side of the kind of that attacking front three, because he kind of drifted inside the same as Emile Smith Rowe for the left drift inside. So I think it works.
Yeah.
But it means benching one of Pepe or Saka and Aubameyang or Laka for that striker on. A lot of people want to see Pepe play as much as feasibly possible, and I understand that. We spent a lot of money on him. He showed some good output. But I think having him as Saka as a rotation or as an option to play, not even necessarily a rotation, but as just competing with each other, and then you've got the options for Pepe to compete with Emile Smith Rowe for the left. Pepe's then in a situation where he's got two positions open to him and he can fight for either of those. I think Saka's your shoe-in on the right. It's his best position. It's where he's done the best for us. Keep him there. The striker battle it out between Laka and Aubameyang. And then in the summer, focus on adding to the spine, building this team up from the bottom, the foundation, and then Arteta's got something from to build from, rather than having to sacrifice all of attacking play and go into a back three like we did last season.
And then we can cherry pick certain parts of the squad. 100%.
It's about the foundation. That's what it's about at the end of the day.
Like I always say on my YouTube channel, I describe the strikers as flat screen TVs and PS5s. If you ain't got no heating, no running water in your house, no installation, you can't talk about those things. So the foundation example you gave is fantastic. You made an interesting point there. I don't know if it's just me, but I don't think it's that deep with those front three positions. Like, I know us as Arsenal fans, there's a lot of, your team Aubameyang, your team Laka, your team Odegaard, all of these sort of things. It's Pepe, or I don't really care, because, fans cry about we need options, we need this. And when we start getting them, it's, we can't sign. People didn't even want Odegaard because we had Smith Rowe. They don't understand this is a squad game, and it makes people rise their games up. I don't mind it. If there's games we're playing a low block and we might need to stretch the team, Saka, Pepe, Martinelli, Aubameyang could all be used. Like you said, I think Laka and Aubameyang can work together, but I'm with you. It's like, it's either or. We've seen Lacazette play 10. We have cried for these options. Smith Rowe out there now. We've cried for this versatility. So it's a mixture for me according to who we're playing, who's in form. And the fact is, we've cried for this. 38 games in the Premier League alone, let alone how much in the Cup. We're going to need this. And as you've seen with Arsenal, we shouldn't be relying on players, because I would describe we have relied on Aubameyang, we rely on Saka, we rely on Tierney, and I think our performances are too correlated to if these guys have good games, good first halves, and then better second halves. We need different roles, and people don't get that. I've left this question up for a while. Please make sure you're hitting the like button, people. I'm sure my subscribers have heard my opinions on Leno, but I'll let you answer this. He said, fellas, have you noticed that Leno's...
my language?
Yeah. I don't know what happened there, but fellas, have you noticed that Leno's performances seem to have dropped since Matt Ryan has joined? What's your feelings on that?
What? I don't know if they're actually existentially linked or not, or rather they're just coincidental. Leno, and I know that a lot of people, when I do the watch-alongs with you, like to banter me about Leno and Martinez a lot, because I don't look at saying that we sold the wrong keeper, that argument, because I look at that and I go, I don't think we had much choice. We had Leno, who is a goalkeeper we brought in for 25 odd million quid. He's progressed since that point, so he's arguably now a 30+ million pound goalkeeper.
Facts.
No one was coming in for him in the summer, because most of the top teams that would want a keeper like Leno they've already got their top keeper. Chelsea is the only club that have really had a goalkeeping issue, and they went out and signed Mendy. So who's going to go out and sign him for the money that we want for him? We needed money because of the pandemic. We wanted to go and sign Gabriel, who we hadn't done by that point. Aston Villa come in for a 17 to 20 million pound bid for a keeper that was worth a percentage of that a year ago, that's had 10 good games at the end of the season. And yeah, I would have loved it romantically for it to be Martinez that was our goalkeeper for the next 5 years. But realistically, in the context of what we were at, it just wasn't feasible. And if you get offered 17 to 20 million quid for a player like Martinez, you take it. Like,
especially when we can reinvest it, of course.
And how many people have moaned about Arsenal selling badly at the club? And that was not a bad sale. That was a good sale. And we're still moaning about it. And that's
taking us to church, man. Jesus Christ, that was a great way of putting it. It's like that, you said it there, and that's what gets me. It's like, fans, you can't have your cake and eat it. You can't bash with one hand and then critique with the other. Like, you need to give context. Like you just said there, you can't say the club needs to make harsh decisions. It's too comfortable and all of these things. And then when you have a keeper and sell him in Martinez. Now, personally, I would have liked Martinez to stay, as I'm sure everybody would. Two good keepers, but it came across as, from what I saw in the Athletic and things, that he was told abundantly clear, Leno is my first choice. It is what it is with you. And he said, all right, cool. I've been here for years. I've won an FA Cup. I've tried, innit? It is what it is. And we needed money. He gave us money. And like you said, that was almost 20 million, 17, 18, 20 million that fell out the sky in a matter of months. Because where was he? It seemed, as much as I rate Martinez, it seems there's a lot of, I don't know the word, but it's like we've rewritten history. We've acted like he's always been this, everybody's thought he's quality. He's been here for years, sort of thing. And I think even at Villa, nobody talks about the mistakes. When he plays well, it's all Leno's fault. But
Spurs game.
Terrible. Nobody said anything. That's his fault. But it's like with Leno, when we look at Leno, I'm not going to lie, I do rate him. I do rate him highly. I do think he's one of the best in the Prem. I do think if he had, like you said, a better foundation, he would look a lot better. I do think you can move forward with him. Personally, I think it's of the same nature of the striker stuff with Arteta, in that if we fix the nucleus of this team, if I'm Arteta, genuinely, I'm going to look at the goalkeeping position. He can play out from the back. His distribution has improved, but I think in recent weeks, it's looked at,
we need better. Like, we need a better distributor of the ball. Yeah, that's
I just feel he's a good shot stopper and quite shaky at everything else, and he's just not my sort of keeper. Like, what I liked with Martinez, he gave more calmness. And you've played football, you know, I was a right back. When you're in a defense and you're all over the place and your keepers are calm and influence, that can help you. The flip side of that is when he's looking a bit nervous, you're all nervous. And I do think we need better than Leno. I do think sometimes the saves are a bit over spectacular. I do think even sometimes when it's not necessarily his fault, I'm looking at him like, oh, you could have done better there. Like even in our last game, he beaten too easily at his near post. I do think there's a lot of, once again, for those not listening, there's a lot of problems before Leno, but I won't say overrated, but I do feel he can be a bit suspect and it's not really spoken about. So where are you at with Leno?
I think that he's a solid keeper. I think he's a top six keeper. I
100% agree.
I think that the issue is that you look at the Premier League now, you look at the quality of goalkeepers in the Premier League, and he's always going to be compared to those, compared to an Edison, compared to an Alisson, compared to David De Gea, etc. I mean, David De Gea's stock's dropped off massively since a few years back. The issue is that a goalkeeper is always measured on their mistakes, not on their saves. And when Leno makes a few mistakes, and they have come this season in the sense of the Wolves game with the red card that was just chaotic. But I think that whole game, is a bit of a, not necessarily a write-off, but if we played some of the best football we've ever played in the season in that first 40 minutes, and I think that was a bit of a turning point for the second half of the season, is that if we win that Wolves game, we're not where we are right now. We'd be sixth after that. But he's a really tough one because you say maybe he's a little bit extra in terms of his saves sometimes than he needs to be. But his distribution is what's key for us. And I remember the one against. It's been
a bit shaky. Like it's been a bit. There's been examples where it's led to goals, but that's one thing that even when I was a bit more of a harsher fan on him, that's one thing I gave him. I think it's been a bit shaky. Like even in that Wolves game, the David Luiz moment, you see it yourself. 9 times out of 10, you know, David Luiz is the one who sells the papers because he made the mistake. But it's all about the sequences. You know, people are showing short for him. He's gone long unnecessarily, and then Luiz is out of position. You know, there's been many incidences. What was it? Was it Burnley or Leicester where it was again Xhaka was involved, but I think it was more Leno's fault. In fact, I might even be talking about the Europa League with Ceballos, but I do think there's just too many of these brain farts from Leno.
Yeah, there are situations. I do think it's what you say about what's ahead of him and that making him a bit more nervous, etc. I think the mistakes that we've made leading to goals are going to breed that kind of doubt in his mind. I think that's why you saw against, who is it that was it the North London derby or the one after where we just no, it was West Ham. First 10 minutes of West Ham, he was kicking it long constantly, over and over again, because I think he's so sick of lacking in trust of the guys ahead of him, that he can't trust them anymore. And Arteta, I could see on the touchline, was shouting at him saying, no, you need to go short. That's the way that we're trying to play. And that is how we've scored a lot of our goals, is from playing short and then building up from the back. It does work. And every time we kicked it long, we put ourselves under pressure, which in turn led to that high amount of goals that we conceded against West Ham, because we were kicking it long, because we were putting ourselves under pressure. Yes, he's got a mistake in him. For me, you look at when we say about a top 6 player, is he better than Schmeichel? For me, I think Schmeichel's distribution is dreadful. I think it's really quite poor. The amount of times he just kicks it off the edge of the pitch because he hasn't got any options or whatever. His shot stopping's very good. They're quite similar. I wouldn't swap him for Schmeichel, for instance.
I wouldn't necessarily swap either. The only thing I would swap him for Mendy is the mentality of
Schmeichel. I wouldn't swap him for Chelsea's keepers. I wouldn't swap him for Pickford. I wouldn't swap him for him.
Oh, don't say this. They're definitely not Pickford.
That's what I'm saying. He is a top 6 keeper. It's fact.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, but it's not for me. It's not a position that I'm going 2021 summer and I'm going, right, we need to buy a better goalkeeper than Leno, because I think that to do that, it's going to cost some serious dollar. And you're looking at the areas of the pitch where we do need to spend that serious money, and that again takes priority.
Facts. And then, like I said, I do think that's like I said at the start of that, a better defense. I feel he's calmed down. And I think whatever I say about Leno, praise or critique, I think one thing that kind of highlights our football club is that since we've signed Leno, you haven't built a defense for him. We're still talking about Bellerin. Yes, Gabriel's come in and David Luiz and Saliba, but we still ain't got 2 definite partners. We've got Tierney now, we've got Gabriel, but then there's just still problems there. We've got a next question from Graham, though. He's saying, still concerned about the culture of comfort at Arsenal. Is Arteta strong enough to sort that mentality out? For me, I would say no, and it's nothing to do with Arteta in that I think he can, change it. He has done it a bit, but one man can't change everything. Everybody, he can take people to water, he can't help them drink. So that's me. Where are you at with that?
Yeah, no, it was interesting when you said you didn't think Arteta could do it, because in my head, I was immediately going, actually, I disagree with that. But in the sense that you've put it there by saying that he on him just by himself can't, that's important. You need everyone on board to be going, look, we need to identify the players to move out of this team because their mentality, etc., needs to go. I think that's gradually happening. I think that Edu gets a hell of a lot more stick than he actually deserves. So I think him and Arteta.
For me, I'll hold my hands up.
Yeah, they've worked well to move players out of the team, and that's done. That's done. I think that you look at how he's kind of drawn a line under certain players like Guendouzi, etc., and he's dealt with those situations. And he said, look, if you're not going to get with the program, you need to get gone. And that's the thing about where we've seen our decline under Arsene Wenger, was that he stayed loyal to too many players for too long that weren't taking us anywhere. And Arteta's not done that. He said, look, if you're not playing good enough, then you need to move on. Yes, there's certain examples where I think that maybe like the Willian thing where he gave him a little bit, probably way too much leash. But I think that's a guy that you've brought in the summer. He's your signing. You're spending a lot of money per week.
He's your guy, isn't it?
Giving him the chance to try. And we saw against Leicester and against Benfica when he came on for that second leg that, yeah, we can get some good performances from him.
He can get some change out of Willian in these last few games, 100%.
He needs to. He needs to keep getting it. That's the thing with Willian. I just hope that he's not kind of crucified himself for the whole of the season in the mind of all of the fans. I think it's going to be really difficult to drag back that reputation. But the only way to do that is if he plays. And I think Arteta kind of knows that. But I think people are frustrated to see him get so much game time under Arteta, because it's blocking the path for someone like Martinelli that a lot of people love, but I actually think a lot of people overrate at this stage because he's still 19 and he's 19 years old. He does a lot of running, and
people are going to cry at you saying that. They're going to misconstrue what you're saying.
Facts. Yeah, it's facts, because if you look at Martinelli's output and you look at he scored a great goal against Chelsea, and I loved every stride of that goal. And I loved what he scored, this goal against West Ham, and his impact in the Europa League when he joined. But he's 19 and he runs about a hell of a lot. And that pure characteristic in a player, especially I feel for kind of an English club, when a player runs and chases and presses, that for some people is worth a hell of a lot more than a guy with 93% passing accuracy.
He's playing for the badge.
Exactly. And that mentality in an English kind of club and that sort of things is very much kind of really desired. But over a player like, you talk about Granit Xhaka as an misunderstood player, a guy that gives you 91 plus passing accuracy per game is a rare commodity in football, especially in that position. And the whole myth around he's a backwards passer. He's passed more forward passes. He's passed double the amount of forward passes to backward passes this season on stats. Like,
probably because he played the most, to be fair. But
he has, yeah. But you've still got to play those passes forwards.
Yeah,
and he's averaging just under 20, I think, forward passes per match. And a lot of them are going out and utilising the wide areas. But a lot of people won't like Granit Xhaka, and I get it. And I think we should buy someone that's better than him. Don't get me wrong. But people will put more stock in Martinelli's running and pressing than they will in a guy that's got the passing accuracy and the way to keep us ticking. Like
because you said it earlier. It's very, especially in a game like football, when everybody's so emotionally invested, and especially with a lot of these players, they do become scapegoats. Yeah. Like, I'm definitely not Xhaka's biggest fan. I'm definitely not Bellerin's fan. I'm definitely not a couple of these players' fan. But I can look at it fairly and say, you, William, as well. You played well. Okay, today you played well. You played poorly. Okay, today you played poorly. We're in that segment now, and I do think there's this romance, and I always describe it as the honeymoon period. It happened a bit with Saka, where people started questioning Saka's poor form. It's going to happen with Martinelli, because nobody talks about, fair enough, it was a rotated side. He was playing on the left wing. He had Cedric behind him, but he was poor against Southampton. He conceded the penalty against Liverpool 2 seasons ago, last year, whatever. He was poor against West Ham. People don't speak about these things because he loves him. And that was my point earlier, in that it's all Martinelli through the middle. What happens when he gets that choice and you say, well, actually, we need this? You got to remember, man, 19. He hasn't played 20 league games in a row for this club, or even 10. So we need to take it easy. And it's like what you said with William, we've got a bit of problems there. I wanted to ask you earlier, and before I forget, you mentioned Buendia. If you had an option out of Buendia, who have I got here? Buendia, Aouar, and Odegaard permanently, you can only have one. Who are you going for?
I think I'll go for Odegaard, because I just think that he's in the club now. He's transitioned. He has got so much potential, and I think he fits perfectly what Arteta wants to do. I don't want to fall into the new toy trap, as I tend to put, and I think people get very kind of obsessed with wanting something different and something new because they want to see what they could do, and they could be great. But I think we've got someone who is great, so why not keep the guy that is great moving forwards and do what you can to get. I also think he's a leader on the pitch, and that characteristic of dragging the team forwards. I never looked at Mesut Ozil as necessarily a player that would pick up a game by the scruff of the neck and drag it forwards. I think that when Arsenal played well, Ozil emphasised the fact that Arsenal were playing well. But Odegaard, when we're playing poorly, I think he is the type to take the game by the scruff of the neck and drag us back into a game like against West Ham, or drag us to a victory like against Olympiacos away. So I think that, for me, it has to be him.
It's like you said, it's like with Odegaard, I'm not going to lie, when he first signed for this club, I was of the belief I'm not wowed by your technical ability. Saying that, I'm the first to retweet everything, little twist and turn, I'll retweet everything. But I know you're a technically good footballer. Can you come here, kind of hit the ground running, make the difference, look like a Real Madrid player with these poor Arsenal players? And I think in the last few weeks, the pennies dropped. Sometimes for me, a bit of it must have been adapting, but he has looked a bit scared and things. Now he gets it. It's like the pennies dropped. He's clearly comfortable. If I'm offered any of those three, I'm not going to lie to you. I hear what you're saying. I agree with you about the Odegaard one, but I think I'm personally too emotionally invested in Aouar. I'm still not prepared to give that up. I still have small hope of him and Partey together.
The issue with Aouar, and this isn't from me. This is from doing the tactical breakdowns and speaking to a lot of guys who watch French football, like Jeremy Smith, for instance, who writes a lot about forget French football news and places like that. I know the Arsenal fans aren't the biggest fans of that site. But they're not biased, trust me. I know a lot of them. But it's with Aouar, is that what got me about him is that I appreciate his technical ability. I get how good he is, and I think this season where Leon have been pushing for a title, he's been really, really good. But always the thing that got me with Aouar, that put me off him a little bit, was when I heard from people that watch him on a week in, week out basis, is that when Leon drop and when Leon are poor, he is not someone that drags them. He is someone that drops to that same low level and will not pick himself out of the mud.
Starts feeling sorry for himself.
Yeah, he's not a rope being dragged out of the mud. He's someone that's stuck in there with him, and he's not going to be that guy. So that's where I think that when we need character change at Arsenal and a culture change, I don't look at Aouar as a character that would do that, but I do see that with Odegaard. So that's why I would go for him still.
Graham, I think this is a bit controversial. He said this talk of Odegaard and Aouar is an admission that Emil Smith-Rowe won't make the grade. Listen, I don't want to draw too much conclusions on Smith-Rowe, but Smith-Rowe is cool. He's shown he can play through the middle. He's shown he can play on the left. In future, I think he'll possibly be able to play as an 8. That man is going to have a future here. Aouar and Odegaard, for example, I'm saying Aouar personally to come and play next to Partey. I would like Odegaard to play more as the 10. So, and like I keep saying, Graham, you're always there. 38 games probation period, I don't think that means anything with Smith Rowe. I think people forget with Smith Rowe, he was in the boat of Nelson and Eddie and Joe once upon a time. He got his opportunity and he's gone flying. I wouldn't say that it's quite an admission, Graham. Like I said, it's a squad game, man. It's a squad game. He'll be all right, man.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that Smith Rowe has shown that he can't be kind of relied upon to be a 38-game a season in the league player. He hasn't got the fitness. He hasn't got the injuries for it. We need to sign someone. And I think also the fact that they play so well together gives you that extra. And I think that you're right about the 8 position. I think once we're defensively solid and we've got a really good back four and that Partey's playing week in, week out, we can afford to not have a Granit Xhaka style player alongside Partey, and you can afford to have someone a little bit more expressive. You can afford to have a better Danny Ceballos, some people might say, in that position. So, yeah, I think you're spot on with that.
What do you make of our midfielders anyways? Because, you know, I've even forgotten until you said that. Forgot Ceballos was here. We've been there with Xhaka. Personally, I don't believe in any of them apart from Partey. I think there's too much question. I think there's question marks over every centre midfielder apart from Thomas Partey at this football club. Where you at? Are you bringing Guendouzi and Torreira back from the cold? Are you selling them? Where you at with El Nene? Just where you at with our midfield? Obviously, we can all agree, and you've said it, we need to buy one. But where you at with the existing options?
Partey is a world-class player, and it's barely debated. It's not even needed to be debated about. If he was fit this season, I think we'd be much higher than we were right now. I think we would win games that we haven't won with Partey in the team. The drop-off from him to what else we've got is massive, and that needs to change. I think the drop-off from Xhaka to the others is also quite big, because I know that you're not maybe his biggest fan and you have a few gripes of him, but I rate the guy as just a consistent performer with a couple of mistakes in his game. Yeah.
No, do you know what it is? Don't get me misunderstood with Xhaka. I don't think he's a bad player. I just think he's one of those, you've got what I call Xhaka sexuals, like people that make out he's amazing and you've got some terrible footballers. I just think he's in the middle in that. For me, he could be part of the squad. I just think when he's central to the game, he is. And like you see, you can reflect it with the stats. If he's your man for playing forward and building around, especially if you was a midfielder in Arteta, so I think you're in trouble, because I don't think the pros he gives you is outweighed by the cons. When you look at someone like Jorginho at Chelsea, you know you can run past, you can walk past him, but Tuchel set up that team in a way that whatever he wants from Jorginho is going to give him that. I don't feel we're ever going to do that with Xhaka. I think he's a squad player at best, but I definitely don't hate him. But go on, my guy.
I think that what's beyond Xhaka is that's what worries me. I'm not a big fan of El Nene. I think he's a far too passive player to be at the club. We've got a year left on his deal. We've got a year left. Sell him. Like get 5-6 million quid for him. Move him on. Yeah, exactly. You've then got, as you say, Guendouzi and Torreira coming back. Torreira is a really big question mark for me, because I think that when he came in and he was playing in his natural position, where I was like, wow, this guy can be the difference maker for us. He can be the guy that is our number 6 going forwards. But then Unai Emery wants to play the system where he's playing further forward to try and win the ball higher up the pitch. I get the idea. I understand the idea behind winning the ball further up the pitch, so there's less space to then counter on the opposition and you can hit them much harder. It just didn't work. Like, you just can't do it.
Terrible.
It really, and then he wanted to play Guendouzi deeper than Xhaka in that same system, and I found that strange. I would sell Guendouzi. I'm done with Guendouzi. I'm so finished with Guendouzi. I can't stand the guy. It's got to the point where I'm probably not the best person to talk about him, because it's got to the stage where I just don't like him. So,
what's he done in particular for you? Is it just his name's consistently in lights with attitude issues and things? Do you feel that while he might be talented, the sort of talent for the grief, that it's not sort of worth it? Where is it? What is it specifically?
I just think that we need a change in the culture, and he's not that change. Like, he's not that.
Let me be devil's advocate. Would you say he somewhat changed it? Would you say he somewhat changed it because of? Remember, he came here, he was playing straight away. He kind of got it. Maybe to a sense, he took it a bit over the top. Some would say I'd rather that against Brighton than what we see with others.
I just don't know what Guendouzi is. That's kind of the issue for me. Is he a 6? Is he an 8? Is he someone that's like a hybrid between an 8 and a 10 that can push forwards? I just don't really know. And to be a really good kind of 8 in the Premier League, you need the ability to go up and down the pitch and have output at both ends. You need to create. You need to be able to come in with a couple of goals during the season. He's not a goal scorer, Guendouzi, for me at all. Defensively, he's not the disciplined guy that you can play at a number 6.
That's his weakest aspects. defensively.
It is. And that's why I just think that if you get someone come in with a 15 to 20 million pound bid for Guendouzi, I'm like, yeah, I'd bite your arm off for it. Go and invest in someone else. Add in a Basuma or add in someone. I'd rather, if you wanted a young guy, like a 23 and under player, I'm looking at someone like Mwepu at Red Bull Salzburg and going out and getting him, who's so much more physical, gives you that different dimension, that gives you the same amount of legs that Guendouzi does, but can bully players off the ball and is intelligent at the same time to find the right passes. They're the kind of unknown little gems that I'd be looking for, rather than sticking out with someone like Guendouzi that's just a bit of a problem for me.
Do you know what it is with Guendouzi? I just like to give him a slap in the head and say fix up, because I like his. I can't lie. He's one of them ones where I think you're either going to go and be a very good player or you're going to be terrible. I think he's going to go into if he continues like this, he's going to be with the Ben Arthurs and Adel Tarats, and that he's going to have a good career. But it's what if. Personally, I'm with you in that I don't quite know what he is. I see a bit of box to box. I see a bit of deep play, and I see someone that wants to receive it. I think there's something there. And when I look at some of these players that have been in the team that we've spoken about and we're still persisting with, I don't get it. Like, I'd rather give time to Aubameyang and Guendouzi than certain others. But I'm of the feeling with you. My feeling is I bring Guendouzi back because the only question mark has been you've taken it over the top. If becoming a dad now and seeing what it could be, if that's matured you up and you get it, because Arteta likes you, he's played you against City. If you get it, then you're in it for me. If not, I understand making a little profit. He might go off to be a better player, but what? We grabbed him for 7-8 million. You sell him, you get a sell-on clause. It is what it is, sort of thing. Out of Guendouzi and Torreira, I'm not too sure who I'd want to bring back. Tactically, ability, what I would like is every day of the week is Torreira. But it's like when I look at the whole, was you comfortable in England? I've never had to say that about Guendouzi. I've just had to question, do you need to calm down? If Torreira doesn't want to be in England, then you definitely don't want to be at Arsenal. Where are you at with that?
Yeah, what I will say on Guendouzi is just that whilst I'm not his biggest fan right now, there is nothing more that I would love for him to come back and prove me wrong. But that's what I want. That's I think that a lot of people kind of get obsessed around players in a personal level, especially Granit Xhaka again is one of those. Like, people would love to see Granit Xhaka fail, but I don't think many people would love to see him turn around and prove them wrong, because maybe the thing. And we need to. That's the thing, is that we haven't got time. I think we've seen over the last kind of couple of days that the world can be really crap sometimes, and we just need to really be backing these players to come back and turn things around. I would personally sell Guendouzi based upon what I've seen. But I would love for him to come back, get into the team, and utterly smash it next season and give Arteta everything that he wants him to be and be a perfect partner for Thomas Partey. I'd love that, because one, it means we don't have to spend any money on another position. Two, it means that we've got a young player that could be with us for several more years that we wouldn't have to invest any more money.
There's some resale value there.
Exactly. I'd love for him to really kind of come back and prove me wrong, and that's the difference. But yeah, Torreira's a really odd one. I think if you bring him back and actually put him into the position that he can play, I think he could be an option for us. The issue is playtime. Like, he has barely played. Like, the last year and a bit, he was injured at the start of 2020.
In the league.
Exactly. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if I buy into the whole conspiracy of if they're really kind of playing him less. No. I think you look at their midfield and you go Saul, Koke, Marcos Llorente. I know Llorente play more right, but it's not going to get in that team. So, and it was weird to say, like, hear the things about he wanted to pair him with Partey. I don't think that you take Saul out of that team and play him instead. Hector Herrera ended up staying, I think, as well. So I don't see where he gets into that team. So I don't buy into the conspiracy, but I think he could come back and maybe be an option for us.
Facts. That's what I'm with you. I don't believe in the conspiracy thing, purely because logically, if you're Diego, bearing in mind you've paid to take a man on loan, if you really believe he can help you in your season, are you going to sit there and say, well, Arsenal took our player in October, we're not going to play him? That's bullshit. You're going to play him. At the start of the season, when Kondogbia was playing well, when Llorente was having that real purple patch, when the team was kind of performing, you can't make a case for not being in this team, for being in this team. When they've kind of been shaky, I'm looking at Torreira now. It's like, what are you not doing now? In the same way, Xhaka, whatever you say about him, there's been 3 managers and they've all used him. You've had your little thing under Emre. Arteta's not using you. You've gone to Simeone, where, South American players, fellow South American, Spanish country, everything was set off to see him play like the Torreira you referred to of the first year at Arsenal. It ain't hit off. So I need to ask, what are you doing wrong? So it's an interesting one. My guy, Mr. Adlib23, is saying, Deluded, beg you ask Tom about the 2 left-footed centre-backs. What he's referring to is what I was speaking about on my channel, in that Gabriel and Marie. You know, people are fond of Marie, people are full of Gabriel. Nobody talks about when two right-footed centre-halves play together. It's all the rage when two left-footed. So where are you at with that?
I think that the issue is they are both two very left-footed, left-sided centre-backs. I think their right foots are a considerable drop-off from their left. Tactically, it doesn't make a lot of sense to play them together for me, because the issue is when you play a left footer as a right-sided centre-back and a right footer in the left side, if they're not good with their weak foot, it means that when they play a pass out to the fullback, which is a pass that we do all the time under the system that we want to utilise, because we want to get either Bellerin and Cedric as far up the right or Tierney on the left-hand side as far up the left, is that when you play a left-footed pass to the right, it in-swings and it goes into the player's path rather than ahead of the player's path. And that puts your fullback under pressure. It means that they'll take a heavier touch and there's a high chance they could lose the ball. So that's why I'd rather see us play with a more natural side on both positions.
That's why at a push, I know it's probably asking a lot, but if we were to bring in that centre half, I probably would like it to be a left footer. But then again, that can't be used with Gabriel. I've got a super chat. It says, fellas, do you think Guendouzi will leave on a free at the end of next season so he can be in control of his future and stick two fingers up? Well, if you want to, being a young man, then you'd have the pick of your clubs. I would say for Arsenal, you can't afford to let him get in that situation. You need to, whether he's going to come back in or leave now, you need to know what you're doing, because that's some money there. That's a sell-on clause potentially there. And again, what we was told, for me, it doesn't tell us fans the right message in that we're dealing with futures when we have ample sort of time. Yeah,
I agree with you. I think that you can't allow that to happen. You sell him or you extend it. You give a 1-year extension or you go further. He's 2021. So you look at it and you've got to give him an extension for longer if he's going to be that age. You have to make a decision. I think Arteta has shown with the Ozil situation that we aren't going to take anything like that. We will just move players on if we need to, and we're not going to lose you for nothing, or we are going to save your wages. So, yeah, I trust them that they will make the right choice, or any choice, be it the right one or not. But I think a decision will definitely be made on him in the summer.
You said it there, and that's what I was referring to earlier about making decisions. I don't know if these decisions are going to be the right or wrong choices in all of the players we've spoken about. I just want to see my club make decisions, like make a decision and stick by it. You look at Maitland-Niles is a great example. 1 minute it looks like we've washed our hands with it. He scores a penalty. He's back in the fold. He doesn't play now. He's gone on loan, and we could go through the same thing. In the future, Maitland-Niles might become a centre mid. Guendouzi might become a talented player. They might not. I just want to see us make a decision and double down on it, not 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, personally. My last question for you, obviously it's Arsenal versus Liverpool. What's your thoughts in that game, man? We're back. Premier League is back, my guy.
Yeah, I'm buzzing about it being back. I'm not so buzzing about it being Liverpool. All saying that, they haven't been great this season. But I really hope we don't go into the game with that mentality of thinking they've not been that great. Maybe we can get a decent result. I think we should go in that just focusing on what we know we can do, which is make plenty of chances and then just focus on taking the bloody things, because we're not taking chances at the moment. And I thought we competed really well at Anfield. I think the 3-1 scoreline flattered them a little bit. Yeah, they had more of the ball during that game, but I think we created enough chances that we could have taken that game and pressed them a little bit more. And I think that was kind of a bit of a cornerstone of Arteta's tenure against top 6 sides away from home, that then culminated. Yeah, it culminated in the 1-0 win against Manchester United at Old Trafford, that actually we can compete in these games, we can win these games. We lost to City just by the 1 goal at the Etihad as well, and we had big chances in that game too. At home, we've beaten Chelsea, of course. We've now beaten Spurs as well. We're on a decent record against these big sides. We've just gone to Leicester and won as well. There is no reason why Arsenal can't go into this game, play how we know we have played this season, and win it. And I think that they are defensively frail, even though they've had a couple of decent clean sheets, and Phillips and Kabak have looked all right. Fabinho going into midfield really helped them. But there's opportunities in that game, and I think that they will be a little bit nervous after seeing how Arsenal came back against West Ham, how they can be a bit lethal. So I'm hoping that we can get a result there.
Like you said there, man, you made a great example of the Anfield game. I personally feel we have been a bit too defeative against Liverpool, and we focused on, at least we've only lost 1-0. I want us to play the occasion, not the team. Like you said, it's just, for me, take it like it's the Liverpool that won the title, innit? But at the same time, play the occasion, don't play the team. They've had a mixture of centre halves there. There's a bit of shaky form in that defense. Go and ask questions. And what I would like to see, playing well for the 90, because even when we have won against Spurs, we've come from behind. It was a bit of a nervy finish, and obviously this isn't going to change too much this season. Chelsea, we almost messed around in the last sort of period of it. I want to see us play well, because whether we've won, lost or drawn in Europa or the league, I personally feel we focused far too much on fine margins, and we either sit here and say, if that didn't happen in the first 20, if that didn't happen in the last, I want to see us play well. And do you think the players are thinking how we're thinking, in that, the international break's probably been a welcome sign of relief? They've been in training now with blood on their minds, really, because we've got a tough run of games. We've got Liverpool, still got to play Chelsea. We all know how it gets when we play Brighton. There's some tough games to come for us.
Yeah, that's in there as well. It's going to be a tough run in, just in the sense that we need to build up this momentum, and we've got a really tough game just to kick off that arguable run that we're going to need if we want to get anything from the league season. But it's a big chance. The thing is, if you get a win against Liverpool, you're absolutely buzzing and you can ride that wave. So I think it's an opportunity is probably the way we'll look at it. The international break, we historically don't come off those amazingly well, but it could be a welcome break. Yeah. I'm going to put you as the lowest point you can, so that when we win, it's going to feel buzzing. It's going to feel
amazing, yeah. I actually forgot to ask you one thing as well. The actual point of this video. If we don't get Europe, where do we go from there? Is it bad for us? Are you one of those people that you believe being in Europe's a benefit? I don't think that's the case for me, because we need money, and we all saw with the FA Cup last year. Where are you at with that?
If we don't get Europe this season, I think that it compounds the pressure on Arteta for next. I'm not saying you sack him. I'm not saying you get rid of him. I'm just saying that I think that the pressure will be on a lot sooner than had we been in European competition. I think that's the only thing it really changed. I don't think it will change too much about the transfer window necessarily, because I think that we'll still do stuff. Champions League would be a big difference in terms of players, maybe. But
trying to get your page going, my guy. Trying to put your link in the thing.
I'm just thinking about kind of when we're looking at the year after where we are here. If we're nowhere better in a year's time, then we can ask some serious questions. I don't think whether or not we're in in Europe next season makes a difference about that point specifically. You keep him for me, you give him this next summer and the next year, and then we make a decision before or at the end of that season.
Yeah, like for me anyways, I wouldn't say I'm giving him a free pass or Arteta a free pass. I want to see building blocks, but I'd say next season is the one where, it's the gloves are off. There's nothing else sort of thing and whatnot. So I agree, man. But Tom, I've loved having you here, man. We've got to do this again. I've got to come on your channel with things like that. People, please make sure you're hitting the links. They're here. I've put the link in the comments, but plug yourself, man.
Yeah, cheers. I really appreciate you having me on, mate. It's been a really good chat and a good debate on certain points. And the chat box has been fantastic as well. You've got a really good audience and group of listeners here. But you can find us at the Gooner Talk TV on Twitter. Just type in the Gooner Talk on YouTube. And there's some exciting stuff going. And you can find me with you for the watch-alongs on match days as well. So that'll be good fun.
Like you said, make sure you get some subscribers going off to him, people. I think he's on 20 odd. Go and push that up, man. Again, in a day and age where decent content doesn't get anywhere, we're doing all right, man. And man, I need to get onto your channel as well. Just let me know when you're free and things. Once again, people, I just want to share the screen very quickly so you know where he's going. I can't lie, your channel music's annoying because it's doing that.
It's changing soon. Don't worry, it's changing.
I'm trying to plug you, it's not helping me. But as you lot can see, people, look at all the videos. He's got positions to prioritize. Should we sell Xhaka, Lacazette? He's even spoken about racism in football. I'm not just saying that because he's on my show. He's got fucking good content. It's as simple as that. So make sure you go and hit the subscribe button and do the rest. I'm on a private browser. You would see the sub button. But man, Tom, love for having that, man. You got any content this week? I know you said you do it with Hugh. Let the people know where they can find you again. You got something today?
Yeah, I work from 3 o'clock onwards, so we're going to put out a show, I think, about 2:30. We're going to have a discussion show, but the main shows people can catch are the Let's Talk Arsenal shows, Tuesdays and Fridays at 5 p.m. every single week. We do daily content, but that's the regular time slot, and we're on every single game as well, straight after the match. So that's what we're going to be doing.
So you know where to find him. And of course as well, we've spoken on your YouTube content. You're a bloody good writer as well. Plug the writing stuff.
Yeah, no, full-time football writer. So check us out at 101 Great Goals. There's lots of stuff on kind of the top 5 right-backs Arsenal should sign, top 5 strikers, so that sort of transfer stuff that people love. So yeah, go check us out at 101 Great Goals.
Facts. So there you have it, people. Written content, YouTube content, you know where to go. But in relation to me and Tom, it's been a fantastic hour and a bit with you guys, but we've got things to do. We've got to keep it moving. Peace out. Hit the like button. Subscribe to Tom. Subscribe to me if you haven't. Get your comments in the comment section. And yeah, better than that, have a great day, people. We're out.